Why does your daughter call me mommy? A single dad's answer left the CEO speechless. Before we begin this incredible story, if you believe in the power of love, kindness, and second chances, go ahead and hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story that will touch your heart and remind you that life has a beautiful way of bringing the right people together at the right time. Now, settle in, because this story is going to take you on a journey you will never forget. The rain was falling in heavy sheets across the city of Charlotte, North Carolina, on a cold Tuesday evening in November. The kind of rain that made the streetlights blur into long golden streaks against the wet pavement, the kind that made people pull their coats tighter and walk faster toward warmth and shelter. But for 32-year-old Marcus Thompson, there was no rushing. There was no warm home waiting with dinner on the table and someone asking how his day had been. There was only a small apartment on the third floor of a tired-looking building on Elm Street, a stack of bills on the kitchen counter that seemed to grow taller every week, and a 4-year-old daughter named Lily who was, without question, the only reason his heart still beat with any sense of purpose. Marcus stood at the bus stop, his worn-out jacket doing a poor job of keeping the rain from soaking through to his shirt underneath. His shoes, which had been resoled twice already, squished with every small shift of his weight. He held a plastic bag in one hand containing 2 containers of leftover food from the restaurant where he worked as a line cook, food that the head chef had told him to take home before it went to waste. In his other hand, he clutched his phone, reading a text message from Mrs. Patterson, the elderly widow who lived next door and watched Lily while Marcus worked his shifts. The message read, "Lily had a good day. She drew you a picture of a rainbow. She asked about her mommy again tonight. I told her what you always tell her. Come home safe, sweetheart." Marcus closed his eyes and let the rain hit his face. He felt it mix with something warmer sliding down his cheeks, though he would never have admitted it to anyone. Lily had been asking about her mother more and more frequently these past few months, ever since she started attending the small preschool program at the community center. The other children had mothers who picked them up, mothers who packed their lunches with little notes inside, mothers who braided their hair into neat styles with colorful ribbons. Lily had Marcus. She had a father who tried his best to braid her hair from YouTube tutorials watched at midnight, a father who wrote clumsy notes in her lunchbox that said things like, "You are my sunshine, Lily Bug," a father who picked her up from preschool still smelling like kitchen grease and onions no matter how much he scrubbed his hands. But she did not have a mother. And every time she asked why, Marcus felt something inside him crack a little wider. Lily's mother, a woman named Vanessa, had left when Lily was only 5 months old. There was no dramatic fight, no terrible secret revealed, no explosive confrontation. There was only a note left on the kitchen table of the apartment they had shared, written in Vanessa's careful handwriting. "I am not built for this," the note had said. "I thought I was, but I am not. She deserves more than a mother who feels trapped. You are a better parent than I could ever be. Please do not look for me. I am sorry." Marcus had read that note holding baby Lily against his chest, her tiny fingers wrapped around his thumb, and he had felt the world tilt beneath his feet in a way that it had never quite straightened out from since. He had not looked for Vanessa. Not because he did not want answers, but because he understood, in some painful, quiet way, that you cannot force someone to stay in a life they do not want. And so he had done what he always did. He adjusted. He survived. He woke up at 5 in the morning to feed Lily before dropping her off with Mrs. Patterson. He worked double shifts at the restaurant whenever they were offered. He applied for better jobs on his phone during his 15-minute breaks, always getting rejection emails that began with, "We appreciate your interest, but..." He learned how to do laundry, how to warm bottles to the right temperature, how to sing lullabies even though he could not carry a tune, how to be everything for a tiny person who looked up at him with enormous brown eyes that trusted him completely. Now Lily was 4 years old. She was bright, curious, and had a laugh that sounded like wind chimes on a summer porch. She loved rainbows, strawberry yogurt, the color purple, and a stuffed elephant named Mr. Wrinkles that Marcus had bought from a thrift store for $2 when she was a baby. She was also, without Marcus fully realizing it, about to change both of their lives in a way that neither of them could have ever predicted. The bus arrived 20 minutes late, as it often did on rainy nights. Marcus climbed aboard, nodded to the driver, and took a seat near the back. He leaned his head against the cold window and watched the city slide past. Charlotte was a city of contrasts. The gleaming towers of uptown, where banks and corporations stacked their glass and steel monuments to success, stood only miles from neighborhoods like Marcus's, where people worked 2 and 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. Marcus had grown up in one of those neighborhoods. His mother, Gloria, had raised him and his younger brother, Deshaun, on her own after their father left when Marcus was 7. Gloria had worked as a hotel housekeeper for 26 years, and she had instilled in Marcus a work ethic that was as unshakable as it was exhausting. "You show up," Gloria used to say. "No matter what. You show up, you do the work, and you hold your head high. That is how a Thompson carries himself." Gloria had passed away from cancer 2 years ago, just before Lily turned 2. Marcus's brother Deshaun was in the military, stationed overseas, and they talked when they could, but the distance was real in more ways than just miles. So Marcus was, in every practical sense, alone. Alone with Lily, alone with the bills, alone with the quiet terror that he was not enough for this little girl who deserved the entire world. When Marcus got home that night, Mrs. Patterson met him at the door with her usual warm smile. She was 71 years old, with silver hair she kept in a neat bun and reading glasses perpetually perched on the tip of her nose. She had lost her husband, Harold, 8 years ago and had no children of her own. Watching Lily had become, she often said, the greatest joy of her later years. She refused to accept any payment beyond the occasional plate of food Marcus brought home and the company of a little girl who called her Nana Pat. "She went down about an hour ago," Mrs. Patterson whispered, handing Marcus the picture Lily had drawn. It was a rainbow, as promised, with 2 stick figures beneath it. One tall, one small. Both smiling. Marcus felt his throat tighten. "She asked about her mama again," Mrs. Patterson continued gently, watching Marcus's face. "I know it is getting harder, Marcus. She is at that age where she notices. She sees the other children with their mothers, and she is trying to understand." Marcus nodded, folding the picture carefully and tucking it into his jacket pocket. "I know," he said quietly. "I just do not know what to tell her that I have not already said. I tell her that her mommy had to go away, that it was not her fault, that she is loved. But she is starting to ask more specific questions. She asked me last week if her mommy left because she cried too much as a baby." His voice broke slightly on the last word, and he pressed his lips together hard. Mrs. Patterson reached out and squeezed his arm. "You are doing a beautiful job with that child, Marcus. Do not ever doubt that. She is happy, she is healthy, she is kind. That is because of you." Marcus thanked her, walked her back to her apartment next door, and then quietly let himself into his own place. He checked on Lily, who was sleeping peacefully in her small bed, Mr. Wrinkles tucked under her arm. Her hair was in 2 uneven puffs that Marcus had done that morning, already starting to come loose. He bent down and kissed her forehead, breathing in the scent of the strawberry shampoo he used on her hair. "I love you, Lily Bug," he whispered. "I am going to figure this out. I promise." He did not know yet what he was promising to figure out. But the universe, it seemed, was already working on the answer. 3 weeks later, Marcus's life took a sharp and unexpected turn. The restaurant where he had worked for 4 years, a mid-range Italian place called Bellini's, announced that it was closing. The owner, an older man named Giuseppe, was retiring and moving back to Italy. The staff was given 2 weeks' notice and a final paycheck. Just like that, Marcus was unemployed. He sat in the parking lot after his last shift, staring at the envelope containing his final pay, doing math in his head that did not add up no matter how many times he ran the numbers. Rent was due in 10 days. The electric bill was already overdue. Lily needed new shoes because she had outgrown her current pair, and her feet were starting to blister. He had maybe enough to cover rent and nothing else, or he could pay the electric bill, buy Lily shoes, and be short on rent. He started applying for jobs that same night, sitting at the small kitchen table after Lily was asleep, scrolling through listings on his phone. Line cook positions, dishwasher positions, prep cook positions. He applied to everything. He also, on a whim born more of desperation than ambition, applied to a few positions that were slightly outside his usual scope. One of them was a listing for a janitorial and maintenance position at a company called Evergreen Enterprises, a large corporation headquartered in one of those gleaming uptown towers Marcus had always viewed from a distance. The listing said the position included benefits, a steady schedule, and pay that was almost double what Marcus had been making at Bellini's. He almost did not apply, certain that a company like that would not even look at a resume like his, but then he heard his mother's voice in his head. "You show up. No matter what." So he submitted his application and moved on to the next listing. To his shock, he received an email 2 days later asking him to come in for an interview. The email was professional and direct, from someone in the Human Resources Department at Evergreen Enterprises. Marcus read it 3 times to make sure he was not misunderstanding. He ironed his only dress shirt, borrowed a tie from Mrs. Patterson's collection of her late husband's things, and took the bus uptown on a Thursday morning, arriving 40 minutes early because he was terrified of being late. Evergreen Enterprises occupied the top 15 floors of a building called the Monarch Tower. The lobby alone was larger than Marcus's entire apartment, with marble floors, a waterfall feature along one wall, and a reception desk that looked like it belonged in a luxury hotel. Marcus felt immediately and profoundly out of place. His shoes were the same worn-out pair he had been wearing for 2 years. His shirt, despite his best ironing efforts, still had a faint crease that would not come out. He approached the reception desk and gave his name, and the receptionist, a young woman with a polished smile, directed him to the 12th floor for his interview. The interview was conducted by a man named Gerald from Human Resources and a woman named Diane who managed the facilities team. They were professional and not unkind. They asked about his experience, his availability, his willingness to work early morning shifts. Marcus answered honestly and directly. He told them he was a hard worker, that he was reliable, that he had never missed a shift in 4 years at his previous job. He did not mention that he was a single father, not because he was ashamed, but because he had learned the hard way that some employers heard single parent and mentally translated it to unreliable. He needed this job. He could not afford to give them any reason to hesitate. At the end of the interview, Gerald and Diane exchanged a look that Marcus could not quite read. Then Gerald said, "Mr. Thompson, I am going to be straightforward with you. We have had several applicants for this position, and many of them have more formal experience in facilities management. However, your references from your previous employer were outstanding. Mr. Giuseppe Bellini called you, and I am quoting here, the most dependable man I have ever had the honor of working with. That carries weight with us." Marcus felt a surge of gratitude toward old Giuseppe that nearly made his eyes water. "We would like to offer you the position," Gerald continued. "Can you start Monday?" Marcus said yes. He said it probably too quickly, and with probably too much emotion in his voice, but Gerald and Diane smiled warmly, and the paperwork was completed within the hour. When Marcus walked out of the Monarch Tower and into the afternoon sunlight, he stood on the sidewalk for a full minute, just breathing. Then he called Mrs. Patterson. "I got it," he said, and his voice cracked, and Mrs. Patterson cheered so loudly on the other end that he had to hold the phone away from his ear. That night, he told Lily that Daddy had a new job in a big, tall building, and Lily asked if the building touched the clouds, and Marcus said, "Almost, baby girl. Almost." Marcus started at Evergreen Enterprises the following Monday. His shift began at 5 in the morning and ended at 1 in the afternoon, which was perfect because it meant he could pick Lily up from preschool himself for the first time in her life. The work was physical but not complicated. He cleaned offices, maintained the common areas, restocked supplies, fixed minor plumbing and electrical issues. He took pride in doing it well. Every surface he cleaned gleamed. Every repair he made was thorough. He was quiet, efficient, and invisible in the way that maintenance workers in corporate buildings often are, moving through spaces occupied by people who rarely looked up from their laptops long enough to notice who kept everything running. Evergreen Enterprises was a large company that specialized in sustainable technology and green energy solutions. It had been founded 12 years ago and had grown rapidly, earning a reputation as one of the most innovative companies in the Southeast. The company's CEO was a woman named Elena Vasquez, and within the building, she was spoken of with a mixture of admiration, respect, and slight awe. Marcus heard her name frequently in the elevator conversations he was not supposed to be listening to and in the break room chatter among other staff members. Elena Vasquez was 36 years old, a Harvard Business School graduate, the daughter of immigrants from Colombia, and widely regarded as one of the most brilliant and driven executives in the industry. She had been featured on the covers of business magazines, had given TED Talks about sustainable innovation, and had, by all accounts, built Evergreen Enterprises from a small startup in her apartment into a corporation worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Marcus did not expect to ever interact with Elena Vasquez. CEOs did not typically have conversations with janitors. Their worlds existed on different floors, in different realities, separated by layers of hierarchy and assumption. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. It happened on a Wednesday, about 3 weeks into Marcus's employment. He was cleaning the executive floor, the top floor of the building, early in the morning as he always did. The executive floor was supposed to be empty at 5:30 in the morning, but that day, when Marcus pushed his cleaning cart around the corner toward the large corner office that belonged to the CEO, he found the light on and the door open. He hesitated, then peered inside cautiously. A woman was sitting behind the massive oak desk, her head resting on her folded arms, surrounded by stacks of papers and an open laptop. She appeared to be asleep. Marcus recognized her from the company photos that hung in the lobby. Elena Vasquez. Even in sleep, even with her dark hair falling loose from what had probably been a neat professional style hours ago, even with the faint smudge of mascara beneath her eyes suggesting she had been there all night, she carried an air of someone formidable. Marcus started to back away quietly, not wanting to disturb her, when his cleaning cart bumped against the doorframe with a small but unmistakable clatter. Elena's head snapped up. Her eyes, dark and sharp, focused on Marcus with the speed of someone accustomed to being alert at all times. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. Marcus, in his maintenance uniform, one hand on his cart. Elena, behind her CEO desk, blinking the sleep from her eyes. "I am sorry," Marcus said quickly. "I did not realize anyone was here. I can come back later to clean this office." Elena straightened up, running a hand through her hair. "No, it is fine," she said. Her voice was slightly hoarse from sleep but carried a natural authority. "I did not mean to fall asleep here." "What time is it?" 5:35, Marcus said. Elena let out a small, humorless laugh. "Of course it is." She rubbed her eyes and then looked at Marcus more carefully. "You are new. I have not seen you before." "Yes, ma'am. I started about 3 weeks ago." Marcus Thompson. Maintenance and janitorial. Elena nodded. "Well, Marcus Thompson, I apologize for being in your way. I had a project deadline and time got away from me." She paused, then added, almost to herself, "Time always gets away from me." Marcus sensed something in her voice that he recognized, though he could not have named it. It was the sound of someone who was very tired in a way that sleep alone could not fix. "Can I get you anything?" he heard himself asking. "There is a coffee machine in the break room on this floor." I can bring you a cup. Elena looked at him with mild surprise, as if she was not accustomed to being offered simple kindnesses by people who were not trying to get something from her. That would actually be wonderful, she said. Black, no sugar. Marcus nodded and went to make the coffee. When he returned and set the cup on her desk, Elena wrapped both hands around it and took a long sip. Thank you, she said, and the way she said it made Marcus think she was not just thanking him for the coffee. That was their first interaction, and it was brief and unremarkable on the surface. But something about it lingered. Over the following weeks, Marcus discovered that Elena was frequently in her office at unusual hours. Early mornings, late evenings, weekends. She worked with an intensity that bordered on obsessive, and Marcus began to understand, through observation rather than conversation, that Elena Vasquez was a woman who had poured so much of herself into building her company that she had very little left over for anything else. He would see her eating takeout alone at her desk at 7 in the morning. He would find her shoes kicked off under her desk, a blanket from the office couch draped over her chair, evidence that she had slept there again. He noticed that she never seemed to have personal calls, that no one came to visit her who was not there for business, that the photos on her desk were of the company's milestones and achievements rather than of family or